Hey everyone, it's Cory McCarthy, and welcome to another live Q&A event. For those that are going to be watching this afterwards, once the viewers roll in, I'll repeat a little bit of this, but the next Q&A is going to be held on the 1st of April, the next public Q&A, that is. I do a public, then I do a Patreon-only Q&A, and I alternate like that. So if you haven't signed up to my Patreon, please do. Do so if you'd like to get involved in the private Q&As, which are a lot more raw and a lot more intimate because there's fewer people. Now let me get over there to set up where the questions are going to start coming in. And open up the question box a while. Mr. Charles Smith says hi. I'm Demon Wolf says sup, Cory. Hey you guys, thanks for joining in. Just letting more people kind of roll in right now as I set things up. Looks like we got 9 viewers. Okay, so as per usual, drop your questions and comments into the chat box. There does appear to be a super chat for those that are interested. So apparently, like if you make a donation or something, it sort of highlights a question, because sometimes when these things get involved, the questions start to flow so fast, I sometimes miss them. What's up, Nicole? Nicole says, hi, I hope you're well. I hope you're well as well. Thank you all for tuning in. Foggy Flatland says, greetings. Jack LV says, yoo-hoo. Thank you guys for joining. I guess I'll start letting more people roll in. We got the number is beginning to climb for the watchers that are involved now. So go ahead and start posting your questions, and I will get to those. But as per usual, this is another public Q&A. I'll do another Patreon Q&A next weekend. For those who are signed up to my Patreon. And for those who want to actually talk to me by voice, there's a tier on Patreon for that as well, where you can actually have your voice heard live in the chat. And that includes all the Q&As, even this, like the public Q&As, you can take part live as well. So Mr. Charles Smith says, thoughts on arachidonic acid supplementation, what vegan sources contain it? To be honest, I don't know a lot about the foods that contain arachidonic acid. I know that it's an omega-6, I believe. I know that the theory behind arachidonic acid, because I don't know if there's any research to actually show that it's actually, this is valid, that it actually works in controlled environments. But the theory is, and this is why you find supplements that contain this, is that apparently the inflammation that's caused by the arachidonic acid helps you build muscle. Now, we do know that obviously you need inflammation to build muscle. You know, training causes inflammation, at least temporarily. But whether ingesting a fat source like arachidonic acid would, you know, cause that inflammation and actually cause muscle growth, I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. And I'm not really sure what vegan sources of food actually contain arachidonic acid. It's not something I've really researched too much. I just get my omega-6s and 3s and even 9s, I guess, from you know, various seeds and nuts, and even tofu contains some of that as well. Let's see here. Melissa says, yay. Yay right back at you. Mark says, hey, Cory, happy Sunday. Happy Sunday to you as well. I'm Demon Wolf says, what's your typical everyday breakfast, lunch, and dinner meals? I don't eat. My breakfast typically happens around 2 p.m. Because I intermittent fast. I've been intermittent fasting since 2015, and it's been nonstop. I actually prefer intermittent fasting. I feel better, and there's just a growing body of research on the health benefits to intermittent fasting, including longevity. But typically speaking, the first meal is like spinach and a mock meat. You know, then I might have like, the second meal might be like something like peanut butter and like flax seeds, and I always throw in a Brazil nut too for the selenium content. And my final meal is typically tofu and broccoli. You know, if I'm eating carbs, there'll be fruit with that meal as well, like berries, bananas, that sort of thing. It really varies. Sometimes there'll be beans in some of these meals. But typically the first meal is a mock meat of some kind, and the last meal is typically tofu. And then somewhere in there I have a protein shake. Usually on training days, it'll be after training. On non-training days, I just have it as like a snack, like a between meal snack. Paul Wennick asks, hey, Cory, I just went vegan this weekend. Awesome. That's awesome, Paul. Everyone give Paul a thumbs up on that. That is a great transition. And besides B12, is there anything else I need to get? Well, the rest really kind of depends on you. I would suggest an algae DHA supplement. So Source Natural makes one. Diva makes one, I believe. Nordic Naturals makes one. It's your omega-3, your DHA and EPA omega-3s that you can get from an algae source. That's how vegans can obtain that without having their body having to convert it from the ALA sources like flax seeds, hemp seeds, chia seeds, that sort of thing. So I would recommend one of those. You can get like a 30-day supply for like $20. So it's not, I mean, it gets relatively expensive to some folks. I don't think it's that bad. You can find good deals on it in places like Swanson Vitamins and things like that. Beyond that, D3 from like a lichen source, if you need D3, if you're in an area where you're not getting a whole lot of sun absorption, you just stay inside quite a lot. That's one thing, or you have a deficiency absorbing D3 from the sun. Those are reasons to take D3. Really, beyond that, it's based on your circumstances, like your health circumstances, your deficiencies. So, you know, get blood work done, see if you're missing anything. Maybe you're somebody who needs more iron. Maybe you're somebody who doesn't. You can get plenty of iron from the vegan diet. And it's not the heme iron that causes ass cancer, that I like to call it. It's colorectal cancer, but I call it ass cancer. But yeah, that's just off the top of my head. You know, I sometimes will throw in a multivitamin if I'm dieting pretty hard, because a multi might fill in the gap of any, especially if I'm keto dieting, because it can fill in the gaps of any missing micronutrients that I might not be getting from the diet because it's so restrictive. Blade Strike says, how do you deal or get used to dealing with cravings for sweets or baked goods? I give myself a treat meal every week with something that I might enjoy. Let be a little bit of cake, be it a vegan burger from a restaurant, you know, or just I cook it at home or something. You know, I kind of like will throw something in once a week. I won't go overboard with it unless it's a refeed, but I won't go overboard with it. Other than that, you know, stevia-based cola drinks can help if you want something that's sweet, but it's not going to really impact your calories or anything, or even your blood sugar. Like they make like xylitol and stevia-based sodas. You know, it's not probably the healthiest thing in the world, but it's not like you're drinking a full-fledged sugar soda either. And you get that taste, and you get that carbonated feeling, and you get the sweetness from the stevia or the xylitol. But really, a lot of it's just, I guess, willpower, I suppose. It comes down to willpower. I find intermittent fasting helps because you can't eat up until a certain 8-hour period. And being that you're cramming so many calories, even if you're dieting, into 8 hours, it's harder for you to find stomach space to actually eat that food, if you want to make sure you get all the food you need to be getting in your day. So, you know, it does sometimes, that can help as well, the intermittent fasting. And if you're dieting with keto, people who do keto, I'm not saying you should do keto. It's not the best thing in the world. It's very restrictive, but they do find that a lot of cravings go away with keto diet. And they feel extra satiated. This is something that's been reported. But again, it's a very restrictive diet. And, you know, if you're going to do keto, I recommend you do a keto with refeeds, because it's also hard in the hormone levels, unless you're doing it for medical reasons, like you have cancer. A new study came out recently about how keto can help you maintain muscle when you're going through chemotherapy and cancer. And if you're epileptic, keto diets were originally designed for people with epilepsy to improve their quality of life. Let's see here. Foggy Flatland asks, what are your 1-rep maxes on the big 3, the overhead press, and how about weighted dips and pull-ups? You know, I have to look at my book, but my bench is probably my worst. It's somewhere around 300 for a 1RM. But I don't usually train my 1RM. I train percentages of my 1RM. So, you know, it might be as high as 95%, 90%, something like that. For instance, in the Upgraded Man ebook that I just released, 90% 1RM is what I recommend for your big lifts, like your bench, your squat, overhead press, deadlift, things like that. My deadlift 1RM is around 500. My squat is around 400. Again, these are, like I said, these are kind of estimates because I don't actually train 1RM. So it might be a little more, it might be a little less. Because I do these percentages and I kind of build from the percentages, not from the 1RM. I estimated it first and kind of work from there. And my overhead press is the worst of all of them, being that it's probably it's the most mechanically disadvantageous move to do, because you're pushing it over your head and you're standing, a lot of stabilizer work. So it's weaker than my bench press, and my presses in general aren't that great because of my long ass arms. That's probably around like 175 or something, 1RM for the overhead press. But I tend to train around 150 to, about 150-ish, 160-ish, that kind of range. But I mean, I'm making improvements every month using more of a power building type program. So that those numbers are subject to change every 3 to 4 weeks. As for weighted dips and pull-ups, I have no idea. I tend to do them body weight. I just go to failure. Mr. Charles Smith asks, do you ever struggle with overeating, willpower problems when it comes to diet? Yeah, of course. I'm a big eater. So dieting is something that is kind of, I just don't like it, so I don't believe really in deep dieting. So it's a little easier to go for modest deficits than it is to go into, 40, 50% of below your maintenance level, which is just outrageous. Things like that Amen Ra guy recommends. He just recommends outrageous dietary shit. And I still stand by my statements that I've made about his protocol, at least from a caloric standpoint. But yeah, I mean, I think we all, if you've been raised in a household where, I come from a household with diabetic parents who are, some of them got diabetic later in life. My mother did, and they're overweight. So I was always around bad food growing up. So I sort of developed a bad taste for that sort of shit, like a junkie. And it is something that I struggle with. It is something I struggle with. But I don't kill myself over it either. I don't want to be shredded. I've at one time I did, I guess, because I thought that was the thing to be. I got down to having abs at one point, but I just didn't like the way I felt. I felt tired. I wasn't even stage shredded, but I was down somewhere around or below 10%. But the research shows that 12% not only is it healthy for your hormones, but it looks better to the opposite sex when they're fertile. So, and this is based, on a decent sized study out of the United Kingdom. And 12% body fat is what fertile women preferred. So yeah, I mean, you don't have to like diet as hard to get the 12%. I mean, you have to get yourself down there if you are high up to begin with, but it's a lot easier to get there and maintain 12% than it is to try to get stage lean. Let's just put it that way. And if you want to be healthy and look good, you don't need to kill yourself over it. That's one of the things I want to try to push in this channel. Unless you are doing it for athletic, and financial reasons, like you are a competitive bodybuilder or something, there's no real reason for your average guy who just wants to look good and feel great and perform well to go below 12% body fat. So moving along, easy way to hit all your micronutrients. Just really track your diet. Like that's the best thing I can suggest is keep a food log. You'll find that a lot of vegan foods are rich in micronutrients. So if you're keeping a food log, and then there's some that are a little more like, you got to pay closer attention to. For instance, getting your ALAs from flax. So make sure you always put some flaxseed in. Make sure you're getting selenium from like your Brazil nut. So at least have a Brazil nut every day. Things like that. But by and large, just track, get a sense of what you're eating every day. That's the best way to do it. And if you really are unsure, just pop a multivitamin, just a single multivitamin, like a one daily multivitamin or something like that. If you really think that you are missing something. But a lot of really popular vegan foods, take tofu, for instance, are rich in things like iron and calcium, not just your macros like protein. So by and large, I mean, if you're eating greens, if you're eating fruits, if you're eating, soy products, you're probably hitting everything you really need anyway. Make sure you're getting some seeds like flax seeds and hemp, or chia, things like that, to get your ALAs. You will need to probably supplement things like I was mentioning earlier, algae for your DHA, EPA, omega-3s, and supplement a B12. You can get a cheap sublingual B12. That'll take care of all your needs with that and give you more than your daily recommended amount. Joshua says, Cory, I'm sure you have answered this multiple times, but can you consume 10 grams of creatine safely at 5 in the morning and 5 before workout? Yeah, of course. They've done research with creatine. Now, I mean, there might be outliers where people who just, have existing kidney problems or something. If you are somebody like that, maybe you might need to back off the creatine. But if you don't have those sorts of problems in normal, healthy people, your general population, assuming you're even a responder to creatine, up to 20 grams a day has been shown to be safe. Anecdotally, I've taken, up between 15 and 20 grams a day for long stretches of time and never had a problem. But just make sure you drink a lot of water. That there is actually, on the creatine labels, they do recommend you drink about like 8 ounces of water per like 2.5 grams of creatine consumption or something like that. Just to be safe, stick with the water. It is the mode of transport as well into the muscle tissue. Let's see here. IJOPS, hey Cory, do you often use slow twitch fiber exercises yourself as listed yourself in your own book? Yeah, I do everything that's in my book. My books, I train that way. Like I train based on the science. I don't train, I don't go out there and find some weird bro sciencey program by like, I don't know, Steve Cook or something and like use his programs. I don't read the magazines really unless there's an interesting interview or something. I don't really touch them. At one time I did when I was younger in my lifting time, and I didn't know any better back then. But as I got more involved in the research, everything I do is based on studies now. I don't take this programs. Once you start understanding the science, like I put in my ebooks, you'll look at these programs in the magazines. You'll be like, that's just trash. It's just trash. A lot of the stuff you see these fitness models doing is just junk. It really is. I mean, there's some exceptions, but most of the stuff is just bro split junk. It's out there. Jack says, Cory, what are your thoughts on the vegan movement incorporating intersectionalism? There are activists in the UK that will shame and ban you out of activist groups if you criticize feminism alone. I think that we should not be co-opting the vegan movement with other activist movements. A lot of these people, and I'll be doing a video with Isaac about intersectionalism. We actually have a collab plan. I'm waiting for him to get his part of the video to me so I can do my part of the video. But a lot of these people that seem to be intersectionalists, a lot of them don't seem to really care about veganism. They seem to like want a virtue signal. So it's like they collect, these various activist movements, these movements, these social or political movements, and they collect them like wear on their sleeve. It's like as identities or something. I think they're mentally fucked up. A lot of them. A lot of them do seem to have weird mental hangups, and they co-opt veganism because it's just one more thing they can like put onto their hierarchy of beliefs and try to impose. I guess it makes them feel holier than thou. But I'll be getting into detail with this with actual fucked up examples in the video with Isaac. But it's definitely a mental problem. I think that's rooting behind all of that. And I think that, obviously the definition of veganism it doesn't include anything else. It's just for the animals. So no use to co-opt it. Let's see here. Jack Green says, what are some political or philosophy books that you like? I don't really read a lot of political or philosophy books, to be perfectly honest. I have, but there's not anything that I would say stands out to me. I just I read through things that are sent to me. I will pick things up and read them if it's been recommended to me. I read a lot of articles online and just different points of view. And a lot of stuff I just get from observation when it comes to the political and the political spectrum, at least. A lot of it's observation, Sometimes things get so absurd that they just stand out in my mind. Yeah. So, but anyway, Joshua says, Cory, I'm sure you've answered some multiple. All right, I think I've already answered this question. So that's a creatine question. This chat's bouncing around. Cory, should I be worried about the awful gas and bloating I have been experiencing on a plant-based diet? It's pretty awful sometimes. I mean, it depends. Like, what are you eating? That's hard for me to like really answer without knowing what you're eating. If it's beans, some people find that they have to use enzymes to help with that. Some people find that, that they have to chew their food a little more thoroughly. They have to like drain the food, like the bubbles out of their food. That helps sometimes too. It could be you're not getting enough water and you're getting too much fiber. There's a lot of things that it could be, but I'm guessing probably the fiber could be one of them because there's a lot of fiber in the vegan diet, and new vegans especially deal with the fiber issues quite a lot. So, but it's hard to really answer some questions when they're too generalized. Let's see here. Can eating antioxidant-rich meals every day slow aging down? Well, Ariel asked this. Yeah, I mean, antioxidants have been shown to slow aging. Like vitamin C is great for that. There's a lot of all the antioxidants are really great for slowing aging, even preventing the aging that you're already kind of like, that you're going to be experiencing. So if you haven't quite gotten to that point yet, keeping an antioxidant-rich diet can help prevent the effects of aging. But it's not just that alone. So you have to look at your lifestyle. You should exercise. You should avoid alcohol, avoid smoking, avoid excessive sunlight. And if you're going to be in the sun, like if you're going to go to the beach, for instance, make sure you use sunscreen. Take care of your skin, because you have to do a lot of things. It's not just the diet. It's also some things that you do on the outside as well, and your lifestyle factors. You can moisturize. A trick that I've been using recently is after I shower or wash my face or whatever, I will use cold water to tighten the skin. That's actually worked quite well. It's sort of like a poor man's Botox, sort of. And then you moisturize after that with the damp skin. These are just various things you can do externally and internally. It's not just diet, but diet is definitely a huge factor. Don't eat a lot of processed sugars, because that can also speed up aging. It's about as bad for you as smoking and drug use and alcohol consumption. I'm actually surprised by the number of people I see that are like in their early mid-20s that look like they're pushing their late 30s, biologically speaking. It blows my mind. Actually, to give an example of this, I was reading the news the other day about the member of Britain First. Paul Golding, I believe his name is, one of the two that was arrested, Jada and Paul. Paul apparently is 36 years old, but the guy looks like, not to attack the guy, but he looks like he's got to be 50 something. And, he doesn't look, we're the same age, and he looks like he's in his 50s. So, that could be genetics too. It could be bad lifestyle choices, high stress. There's so many things that could impact your aging. Sort of a long answer to a short question. It's a very detailed topic, though. It's why I covered a lot of this channel, because there's so much to talk about. Mr. Charles Smith says, I'm following a keto diet at the moment and eating 800 grams of firm tofu per day. I'm worried that it's too much calcium. What are your thoughts on this? Really, what they found is the calcium from diet doesn't seem to have the same effect as the calcium you're getting from like supplementing calcium. So my advice would be don't supplement calcium. If you're getting plenty from diet, which you are with that tofu, because tofu is rich in calcium, you don't need to supplement it. Really, the effect on the heart problems seems to come from, at least in the research I've seen. Now, I'm not a doctor. This is only based on what I've read. Comes from consumption of calcium supplements. So I would just be wary of that. I don't think dietary calcium, probably due to the other nutrients that are probably interacting with it, is a problem. But then again, I'm not a doctor or a dietitian or anything like that. So I'm just telling you what I've noted from the research. I don't want you to hurt yourself. So if you are concerned, maybe speak to a doctor, or in this case, probably a dietitian or a nutritionist, and see what they suggest. Somebody who has been trained, dietitians even medically in nutrition field. So let's see here. Joshua says, what is your opinion on not doing a full range of motion for the bench press, only taking the bar to a 90-degree angle? Reason being, it should isolate the chest while leaving the shoulder alone. I believe in full range of motion because, let's put it this way, you're strengthening not just the muscle, but also your joints and your tendons. You're strengthening everything. And with that full range, you should also be pausing too in your big lifts, like your bench. You shouldn't be like pistoning through it, unless that's just a technique you're using sparingly. If you're trying to gain strength and size, I would say, at the bench, pause at the bottom, down near the sternum, and then push back up. That's my recommendation. And the same thing with the overhead press. Come to your upper chest region and push back up. And have a little pause in there. And squat, pause in the whole deadlift. Just make sure you're pulling from a dead stop with a deadlift. That's my advice really with that. And go through a full range of motion, because what can happen is, if your body gets used to strengthening only within a certain range, and you don't really work all of the tendons to their fullest as well, if you do end up getting a deep stretch sometime, or you have a slip and the weight drops, so your spotter isn't very careful, etc., you could end up with a tear and some serious damage because you're not used to that load, or any load really, at a full stretch. So you should go from a full stretch to a full contraction for optimal development of everything. That's, You know, even though you can push more weight using a partial, you know, cut the weight back and use a full range of motion. And if you want to use a little partial rep here or there as like a finisher, that's fair enough. But don't make it, you know, use it sparingly and don't make it a habit as the primary thing you do. Because the connective tissue is important as well. Cory, what are your thoughts on counting calories? I think that if you have a goal to reach, counting calories is great to make sure you're not overeating, you know, beyond what you should be eating if you have a goal to reach. So that's my thoughts on that. I mean, now if you're somebody who has an eating disorder, that might exacerbate problems. But you know, if you're a normally minded person who's just trying to make sure they get to their goal, and you're not going to obsess to the point of driving yourself nuts, it is a good way to gauge what you're consuming every day and to make sure that, you know, you're going to get to your goal. Because a lot of people will like say like, I'm not getting any results, and they'll think they're eating, you know, below their maintenance calories, or they're you know, burning more than they actually consume. But it turns out they're actually eating more than they think they are, because they're not tracking properly, and they're just getting, you know, maybe a few hundred calories more than they actually think they are from something. So it is good to track for that reason, but don't obsess over it because it can lead to problems too. Let's see here. Jackie says, do I have to worry about heavy metals in beans, lentils, because they grow in soil and they absorb many of the toxic things that are in it? I mean, you know, I wouldn't overly obsess about it. You know, I'm not really an expert in this kind of thing, and I'm sure it varies from place to place. But I wouldn't, you know, if you're not eating meats, you're not going to be overloading on some things like mercury, for instance. But when it comes to the soil, you know, I mean, how do you even know what's in the soil in the area you're in? I guess what metals are in the soil. You know, I guess just I really don't have an answer for that question, to be perfectly honest. I've not read anything about that being a concern, like people getting, for instance, an iron overload from eating beans and tofu. But, you know, there's going to be outliers out there, I'm sure, that have an iron issue already. Like there's people who hold a lot of iron. I actually have this problem. There are people who hold a lot of iron naturally in their blood. They have a large amount of iron, and they, you know, might be wary of that. But I've never actually, on that note, I've never had that problem. So that's an interesting question. It's not something that I've really researched too much or thought too much about. But I've never, on the same token, I've never seen anything negative about that. That's a very interesting question. I'll look into that, actually. That's an interesting question. Yeah, I don't have the answer to everything, guys. Sorry. My thoughts on NoFap, Jackie asks. Look, here's the thing about it. If you are benefiting from NoFap for whatever reason, more power to you. Your body will, if your body needs to release ejaculate, and you know, it's going to do it. You're going to have night emissions eventually. So you're going to ejaculate. Your body will purge eventually in some manner. Now I have seen studies that show that there's a heightened risk of a prostate cancer in people who don't ejaculate regularly. You know, that it is healthy to ejaculate. You know, it is a healthy thing to do. I have also seen studies. People think that you're going to get more manly by not ejaculating, but here's the thing about that as well. They did some research on people who didn't orgasm for, you know, I mean, exclusive, not even from sex, from nothing, for 2 weeks. I think they did a full month, but in 2 weeks' time, the testosterone levels did rise. Like they did go up. They got higher within the healthy range, not steroid-like, mind you, but higher in the healthy range. And but after 2 weeks, it just plateaued. There was no further increases in the remaining 2 weeks of the study, I believe. I think it only went for 4 weeks. So it looks like you will get a benefit testosterone-wise to a point, and then it's gonna taper off. It's gonna plateau. There'll be no further benefit on testosterone levels. So, and even then, the benefit was minuscule. It wasn't something that would make it worth just like, you know, forgoing sex with your partner. Or if masturbating, if it's something that you enjoy doing, you know, obviously people do it because they enjoy doing it. But, you know, as long as you don't have a problem, like maybe you're somebody who has a real addiction to porn, you should get off that. If you're a person who has addiction to masturbating where it affects your life, your social life, your career, you know, you probably should take, you know, step back and take some, a moment to reflect on things and maybe work on that if you actually have a condition or obsession of some kind. But generally speaking, masturbating is not bad for you. It's not bad for you, but anything, I guess, can be done excessively. But it's not also not going to give you a lot of these benefits, like, you're not going to suddenly become the alpha male because you don't masturbate. So yeah, I mean, your testosterone will rise to a point, but even then, it's not excessive. Any tips for strengthening bones? I'm 23 and I had a ski accident, a broken hip and femur. Everybody is telling me a young man shouldn't have a broken hip and femur. Veganism is taking blame. Look, all you can really do to strengthen your bones is some people have a genetic, they just have a genetic reason behind why they break easily. There's some people that just do. But if you're getting enough calcium from your diet, which is plenty of in the vegan diet, and if you're using resistance training as well, that could actually help with forgoing actually increasing your bone density and strength as well. Lifting weights does not just build muscle; it strengthens connective tissue, as I was saying earlier, and it strengthens your bones and it builds bone density. You get bigger and thicker and stronger like a tank all around. Now, look, I've been vegan for a long time, and I've fought full contact as a vegan. I've taken blows that should have broken my jaw. I've taken blows that should have broken my rib cage. I've dealt blows that have broken people's jaws and rib cages. And people who ate meat, and were not vegan and have had those breaks. And I never had a problem with getting a break from any of those. And I want to say, now this is anecdote. I'm only bringing this up because it's an example of as a vegan who's experienced these sorts of things and didn't have those kinds of repetitive breaks. Now it's anecdote, but I will say this. I want to say theoretically that it's because I lift weights. It's because I watch my diet. I make sure I'm getting enough of the micros and macronutrients that I need to repair and to build a stronger body all around, that I didn't suffer those kinds of problems. It's not about vegan or not vegan. It's about living a healthy lifestyle, really. But in your case, it could be genetic too. Some people just have more brittle bones. Just as there are rare people, outliers, who have such strong bones that they can get in car accidents and basically be unscathed. I mean, their skin might be, but internally relatively unscathed. Have you ever seen the movie Unbreakable with Bruce Willis? That is fantasy, yes, but there are actually people out there with a rare bone condition that are basically unbreakable because their bones are just like, I don't know what to compare it to, like steel or something, but there is at least a family in Connecticut that I'm aware of. I remember reading an article about this one time that is basically unbreakable. It's just a genetic thing. So if there's that kind of genetic extreme, I'm sure there's genetic extremes in the other end of the spectrum. So I don't know what to tell you, but just make sure you're watching your diet and you're lifting weights. But if you've broken something, you need to recover first before you go all out in the gym. I would speak with a sport medicine doctor or something to help you get back on track and get through some therapy to recover. Let's see here. George asks, thoughts on the right political commentators becoming SJW-esque when it comes to a vegan diet? Libertarians surely cannot agree with subsidizing the meat industry. Ever wondered what Shapiro would think? Well, Ben Shapiro, as far as I'm aware, he has been challenged about veganism. And he actually said to the person who was challenging him at one of those speaking events that if what you're saying is true and we don't actually need meat, which we all know to be the case, for protein and to survive for health, then Ben Shapiro actually doesn't see any reason to not be vegan and to consume animal products. But he said he would need to look into it more. But it looks like Ben Shapiro would, logically go vegan if. But now the question is he actually going to research that in his own time, or is he just say that at that conference and then fucked off and totally forgot about it? I think this is a situation where we should remind Ben, about that at any event that he's going to be at, because I don't know any other better way to get a hold of him than actually seeing him at an event and reminding him. But as for that is one thing, I attack a lot of liberals a lot, or far left, especially far leftists. But I also have a problem with people on the right wing who think that veganism is a strictly leftist phenomenon and movement, because that's also wrong. People on both sides of the political spectrum can be fucking idiots. Let's just put that out there. It's the truth. That idiots come in from all walks of life, really. So as much as I do get on people on the left, mostly because a lot of the absurd shit we see going on right now being pushed by the far left, there are idiots on the far right as well. I don't stand with everything the right wing does. I don't. Like, I didn't think that people LARPing as fucking Nazis down I think it was in I can't remember where it is now, Virginia, I believe it was, at that that protest, that right wing protest that was going on. I think it was called Seville. I thought that was fucking stupid. I don't stand by Nazism either. In fact, I don't really know a lot about all the Nazi propaganda shit. I didn't really study a lot about that. So people think that I'm like a Holocaust denier. I'm not. I need to read more on the topic before I can make any opinion either direction. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's stupid things the right wing does, and there's stupid things that the left wing does. I think there's stupid things on both sides. And that's one of them, the veganism thing. The right wing saying that veganism is exclusively left wing is fucking stupid, if you ask me. King asks, how can I improve recovery from workouts? I hit the gym 6 days a week for 90 minutes each time. Well, if you're having a problem recovering, maybe you're overdoing it. Try going to the gym 4 times a week and see if you feel better with that. Make sure you're getting between 8 and 10 hours of sleep a night. Make sure you're eating enough calories. You're hydrated enough. Those are things you can do to help recovery. Watch your stress levels, because higher cortisol can make it more difficult for you to recover. It can increase estrogen, can lower testosterone. Those are all things you can kind of do to help your naturally help your recovery from your workouts. But if you are doing too much, your CNS might just be taking a beating. It also depends on how you're training. Are you training in more of a power style, or are you training more of just a straight up bodybuilding style? Because I can tell you this, if you're like benching fucking heavy, or no, benching's not as much. Let's say deadlifting fucking heavy 3 times a week for a few sets each time, if you're like an advanced guy, that might just be too much for some folks. They can't handle that amount of volume on the deadlift over the course of a week. So, take an inventory of your training style, your sleep, your volume, and your frequency, and work with that, and change the variables a bit and see how that affects your recovery. I tend to find that with naturals, and myself included, I tend to recommend an upper lower kind of split. 4 days a week. You can get everything you need done in those 4 days like that. You can be in the gym between 60 and 90 minutes. Barring people taking up stations you need to wait for. But you can usually, if you can get in and get your workout started and go right through it without any kind of hitches, you can get get in and out in 60, 90 minutes. And that'll be ample volume, ample frequency for a natural to grow. And it's enough also where it gives you enough rest time to recover as well. Just make sure you're sleeping as well. Let's see here. Foggy Flatlands says, opinion on slingshot for benching. I don't really have an opinion on it. I don't know much about how it works. It's not a tool that I've looked into. I know what it is. I just haven't really used it myself or read a lot about it to know really. I've only really heard of it, basically. So I don't have an opinion on that. Sorry. Jackie says, do I watch Unnatural Vegan? No, I don't. And I have a real problem with her after her recent attacks on Isaac, who's goes by Ask Yourself for those who aren't aware. Isaac is my friend, and I have a real problem with her making slanderous attacks on Isaac and then cowering into the shadows when he calls her out on it. I think that she's disingenuous, and I think she's a coward. That's what I think. So no, I don't watch Unnatural Vegan. Let's see here. Shit, things are moving pretty quick here. Barrick asks, am I more libertarian or authoritarian? According to my political spectrum, I'm 10% authoritarian, which means that I'm offset by a lot of libertarian views. Now, I'm 30% right of center, so I'm relatively right of center. I'm not far right, but I'm pretty right of center. I'm almost halfway to being far right. So I definitely am right wing, but I'm not as authoritarian as some folks might be. So I'm not like a far right, far authoritarian. I do have a lot of libertarian views. I don't particularly want a lot of government involvement. What are my views on drug laws? Let's just stick with my views on drugs, really. I think that they're shitty for your body. But I don't want a lot of government involvement, I guess. So, but at the same time, there's some people that like they're just a threat to society if they're on or they have access to drugs. I guess it depends on the drug as well. But frankly, I think that all drug use is just unless you're taking it for medical purposes and you really need to, and even then, do you really need to? Like for instance, do you pop Tylenol all the time for every ache and pain, or do you only take it when it's so unbearable that you can't sleep? That kind of thing. That's my view on medical drugs. But when it comes to recreational drugs, I avoid them altogether because they're not going to benefit me, and they're going to cause side effects that are going to harm my body and my goals. And I just don't agree with them. I think that they're also going to harm my senses as well. So for me, my thoughts on drugs really come down to I just don't like them. I don't recommend them to people, but whether they should be banned or controlled, it really depends, I guess, on the drug, and I guess it depends on who should have access to these drugs, because some people just become a threat to society. If they're hopped up on coke or something. That's my thoughts on that. There are some personality disorders that can't. Even alcohol can make them go off. Like for instance, people who are manic depressive, who experience mania. Can be triggered by alcohol consumption even, and alcohol technically is a drug. How do I prevent cramps? Foam rolling can help, stretching can help, making sure you're getting enough magnesium in your diet, that can help as well. Potassium can help. Electrolytes in general can actually help with cramps too, making sure you're getting enough of those. But yeah, those are really the best advice I can give you with that is, and cramps are probably still going to happen. I still get cramps. Do I use a humidifier? No, I don't really. No. I mean, I have one because I own a lot of musical instruments. So I like sometimes if it's going to be a dry day, I will leave a humidifier on just for them. But most of the time, I don't particularly use a humidifier. I don't like the way humidity feels. Let's see. Rebirth says, "What's up, Cory? Hope you're having a kick-ass Sunday." Well, so far I'm really enjoying this Q&A. I love these Q&As. Actually, they're a lot of fun. Should vegans that don't work out take protein shakes? I don't see any reason why you listen. If you're not working out, you likely don't have very high protein requirements. Unless by working out you mean exclusively weights. Now, people might say, "Well, I run. That's still a workout." But people who are runners don't have the same need of protein that lifters do. So if you're not lifting and you're not working out in general, you're not really athletically involved, I don't see why you need to add one. You can get everything you need from Whole Foods if you're just your average person who's not physically active. Let's see here. Jackie asks, is it bad to grind up beans or lentils into a smoothie? I don't see why that would be a problem. I don't know why that would taste all that great, but I don't see why that would be a problem. So I really don't have an opinion on that. I've never tried that before. Let's see here. How do athletes perform on such shitty diets that cause inflammation, disease, etc.? Think about a lot of these top level athletes are also on performance enhancing drugs. So, and a lot of them also end up injured to the point where they have to retire early sometimes. They don't have a full long life. That could also be by virtue of the sport as well. If you're taking a lot of concussive blows, you're going to have a shorter career, or you're going to end up serious brain damage. You might still end up with serious brain damage. But, even when it comes to their performance, even if they're performing well, you have to think about their health too. Like, what's it doing to the inside of their body, to their heart, to everything else? Is it counteractive to the health benefits of being physically active? You hear all the time of athletes dying of heart attacks. It could be drug related too, but that all that inflammation can't be good for them from a shitty diet. That's my thoughts on that. But this is really a lot of factors, so it's kind of a question. I'm like, there's a lot of factors to consider to come to a conclusion about that. And but my real concern is not just performance, but it's also your health and your longevity. Rotten Führer says, carbs versus vegetables, which are better to consume in large quantities? Well, bear in mind, vegetables contain carbs. So do you mean fruit versus vegetables? Is that what you mean? Because vegetables do tend to contain carbs, even if it's more of a starchy carb, they do tend to contain carbs. You know, so I'm not really sure what your question is. If it's fruit versus vegetables, have both. You know, if you know, unless you're a keto person, try to get like, you know, about 5 servings or, you know, of each per day, about 5 cups of each per day. That's what's generally recommended, and that's generally gonna, you know, make you pretty healthy. As long as the rest of your diet isn't just going to blow those health benefits out of the water by eating a lot of like meat or whatever. If you aren't a vegan, if you're a vegan, that's just going to make your diet even healthier. So, Cory, what is particularly bad about fish, and is plant protein equal to meat protein? Uh, On to the first question. What's particularly bad about fish is something I was mentioning earlier when it came to toxins in your foods, is the high amount of mercury. Now, keep in mind, you know, will one single meal of fish give you enough mercury to poison you? Probably not. You know, I guess it depends on the fish. It depends on the fish's environment, et cetera, the fish's health, et cetera. Probably not. But keep in mind, your body can store mercury. So it's about what cumulative amount you're getting in from your fish consumption or other sources of food you're eating that might have mercury contamination in it, so to speak. It's also, there's a lot of other toxins in fish too that and pollutants they found in fish as well. And this has been, I've talked about this in previous videos too, coming from simply from their environment that they're living in, the waters they're swimming in. And keep in mind, you're getting that into your body as well. So it's not just mercury; it's a number of pollutants and toxins that you're getting in your body from consuming fish that just isn't, you know, good for you. And if I'm not mistaken, fish also contains heme iron. And heme iron is linked to colorectal cancer. So those are some reasons to think about right there when it comes to fish. You know, so why ingest those things when you can get perfectly healthy vegan protein-rich substitutes? Now, as for plant protein being equal to meat protein, I've actually done a video about this. It's a recent one. It's like, you know, I think it's called like, you know, meat eaters hate them, supplement industry hates them, etc. You can find it in my video directory. But the gist is there was a recent study, and one of the things the study found, actually was a meta-analysis of like 45 studies. There is no conclusive evidence to show that plant protein is worse than animal protein. It actually didn't matter the source of protein. What mattered was getting enough per day for your goals. Jackie asked my thoughts on organic produce. I think there's a lot of pseudoscience involved in that as well. I buy, or let's put it this way, I buy organic and non-GMO if it's like on offer. I mean, I shop at Whole Foods Market, so most of it's non-GMO. And even if it's not organic, as a non-GMO label, certified label on it as well. But whether it's better or not, I think there might be a degree of fad to it. I really don't know. Keep in mind that the organic pesticide, the pesticides they use in organic foods, there's still pesticides involved. You know, they might even have negative side effects as well. I think I've read that some do. So they might even be worse in some ways than the pesticides they use in non-organic produce. So, you know, I wouldn't say blow your money on it. You know, I have to do more research on it myself. But what I have read, I don't obsess about buying only organic. Let's put it that way. I do think there's a degree of fad involved in that. Ari asks, what's your opinion on Varg Vikernes saying women shouldn't lift and that it messes with their ability to have kids? I answered this last week, I'm pretty sure. Or the last Q&A, I believe, I'm pretty sure. I feel like I've heard this question before. I don't like a lot of the things that Varg Vikernes says. I don't agree with a lot of things he says. A lot of things he says are pseudoscience or just plain bullshit. In this case, to keep this as quick as possible, lifting weights is probably not going to affect a woman's fertility. It's her body fat percentage that definitely can. Like, for instance, if a woman drops down below I think it's 18% body fat. If you go below 18%, you can start disrupting your menstrual cycle, which can affect your hormones negatively, obviously, and you're going to find yourself being less and less fertile or not fertile at all. So there is that risk for people who are athletic getting too low of a body fat percentage. But lifting alone is actually a really good activity for anybody to do for health and longevity reasons. So, and anti-cancer reasons as well. Let's move along here. Some people are just kind of chatting amongst themselves here. John Doe says Charlottesville. That's it. I forgot what the name of the fuck. It's been so long. I forgot the name of the actual town or whatever. But yeah, it was Seville that I was talking about earlier when it came to where I thought it was stupid people LARPing as Nazis there. It's like it didn't help anything, you know. But that was on the topic of stupidity on the left and the right wing, you know, and hating on veganism because I think it's a leftist ideal is another example of stupidity on the right wing. You know, there's stupidity on both sides, to be honest. Turquoise Rose says I should make recipe videos. I do have a couple videos, I believe. I know for a fact I have a vegan donut video where I teach you how to make vegan donuts, and they're fucking awesome. I made it a few years ago. If you search Cory McCarthy vegan donuts, you'll find it. Or if you just search my channel for vegan donuts, they'll come up. Jackie asks, is it true that top Olympic athletes are all on steroids? Now, are they all on steroids? I can't say that. There might be somebody who sticks to their you know, their ideals and they don't use, but by and large they're going to be, because think about it, they're going to be at a extreme disadvantage if they don't take what the other competitors are taking. They're putting themselves at a disadvantage, and the whole point is to be competitive, to win gold. By and large, generally speaking, you're going to find that most, if not all, elite level athletes in even in tested environments are taking drugs. And there's a big industry out there to you know, get past these drug tests, to actually pass these drug tests. People, it's a multi-million-dollar industry, if not more, of people like the Balco scandal, for instance, is a great example of that. Of people who would pay top dollar to get drugs that cannot be detected. And there's a big industry for that for a reason. And you constantly hear about athletes suddenly testing positive. I guess they thought they were in the clear and they fucked up, or their coach fucked up. Somebody fucked up. Let's see here. Let's see. Are there any downsides to whether protein? Jackie asked. The question stops there. I'm not sure what the rest of the question is. Thoughts on abortion. This is something I want to do a video about. It's a topic where I should do a video about this because it's so complex. I think there's a time and a place for abortion. I don't think using abortion as a means of birth control is acceptable. But if you're raped, for instance, you know, or if the child's going to have, if you get, you know, pregnancy, you know, you get tested by the doctor and you find out the child's going to have some severe life-limiting problem, like for instance, something horrible like cystic fibrosis, or they're just never going to be able to live a normal life. I think that abortion might be the best way to go in those situations. Like, it's really a situational kind of thing. And but if you're like the person who got pregnant because they fucked up, you know, in that case, you know, I don't think abortion should be used, or even the morning after pill should be used as a form of birth control. I don't think it should be. But I think I'm definitely pro-choice in the sense that there are circumstances, I think, like rape victims, exactly. That's a perfect example of one, or like those horrific medical conditions where abortion is definitely an option. I think people should be able to have at their disposal. But yeah, that's my thoughts on abortion. It's definitely a sensitive subject matter for a lot of folks. But I try to look at it from a very logical standpoint and look at it from a standpoint of considering different people's circumstances, you know? But do I think the woman who goes out and has an abortion, you know, every other Sunday because she keeps getting knocked up, I mean, I'm being a little exaggerative here, but so to speak, because she keeps getting knocked up, do I think she should be getting that many abortions? No. I think she should be taking an inventory of her lifestyle choices, you know? That's my thoughts on that. You know, anywho, how do you figure how much weight to lift? I want to progress, but I'm cautious about injury. Here's my advice. Pick a weight that is modest. Don't let your ego get involved. Even if you think it might be severely underestimating. Like, let's say you want to do dumbbell bench pressing for the first time. And you feel, oh, fuck, you know, I do barbell benching. I probably could get away with 70s. I'd say err on the side of 50s. Maybe if you're a beginner, maybe try 30s or something, 20s or 30s. It might be really light, but give it a go. go on at least your first set to absolute, I can't fucking do another clean rep failure. So go to concentric failure. Note how many reps you got. Now, here's my rule of thumb with this. With if you can get 2 more reps on a barbell exercise than you were targeting, like let's say your target was 10 reps and you got 12, add 5 pounds per arm to your, unless you can find a dumbbell, you know, that you can get like 2.5s, you know, like increments of 2.5 pounds. But most gyms go in increments of 5. Add 5 pounds per arm and assess again on, you know, your next workout or something. Unless, of course, you got a wildly high number of reps, like you were targeting 10 and you ended up with like 25. But typically speaking, if you can get 2 more reps than you were targeting, add 5 pounds per arm and try again. If you can get, you know, in that case with the dumbbell, if you can get 4 more reps, add 10 pounds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So add like, you know, 5 pounds for every 2 reps that you can get with dumbbells per arm. Barbell, if you can get 2 extra reps, add 10 pounds. If you can only get an extra rep, add 5 pounds. You know, and this is where, you know, micro loading can come in. If you can get like a half a rep or something extra, you can try micro loading if you own micro plates, like 1.25 pound plates. That's what I find works pretty well in assessing the weight you should be using. Is first you got to test, find out where you stand, and I mean where you legitimately stand with good form, proper technique, and going to concentric failure, and then base it on that formula. It's a little rough, but you'll find that it will get you pretty damn close to where your target is, if not spot on to your target for the weight you're trying to use. Now, if you want to try to find your 1 rep max, do the same thing. You know, test out what you're, you know, take a weight and test it out, like how many reps you can get with it. You know, again, err on the side of caution. You don't want to injure yourself because you just put too much weight on. So it's better to go light as fuck and just get a whole lot of reps and find out where you stand than it is to, like, you know, load up and end up crushing yourself under the barbell. And definitely have a spotter if you're testing a weight. And then there's online calculators to find out your 1 rep max. You can plug in what you got with what weight you used, and then it'll give you a calculation, an estimated 1 rep max. And then you can base your lifts from there on that. So if you're doing like 95%, 90%, 85%, whatever of your 1 rep max, you can base it on that number. If you're doing a percentage-based program, like my Upgraded Man e-booklet that's down below in the description, that is a strength-based workout. It will get you big as well, but it's more based on getting fucking yoked, like a bouncer kind of look, a big motherfucker kind of look. That's what I based that one on. That's like your go bear mode kind of book, and that's based on percentages. So if you look at the book, you'll see it's based on percentages, the e-booklet. Anyway, moving along. That's my recommendation for finding your weight. So let's see. Giorgio Detrain says, I started seriously working out in October. I did some strength training until the end of January. I weigh about 70 kilograms. I started with a super weak 60 kg bench and went up to 85 for 2 reps. Is this decent? I'm an American, man. I don't know much about kg. I know it's about double. So did you go from like about 120 to something like about 170? Is that what I'm pounds? I mean, if that's legit all you could lift, that's great. I mean, look, I'm not going to insult anyone because my bench press fucking sucks. It fucking sucks because I have long fucking arms. So I'm not here to judge anybody about the weight they're using. But if you literally, you know, went up about what amounts to around 60 pounds, you know, in it looks like, you know, 4 or 5 months, that's not bad at all. I mean, it's beginner's gains. Let's put it that way. You're going to eventually reach a slowdown, but that's not bad at all, dude. Keep on going. Keep on going. But you're going to find, like, as we all find, that you're just going to be stronger at some lifts than others. Like, I'm stronger at the deadlift by far than any pressing movement. By far, it's my best lift. I just have better leverage with the deadlift. I have shitty leverage on the bench press. But hey, we're all built differently, and you got to work with your body, not against it. You know, but you also got to stay modest and recognize where your flaws are. That's the truth for anyone. You got to try to control the ego, because ego can only lead to injuries and shit. Especially, I want to emphasize that to you because you're a new lifter. You know, stay humble now. Don't develop the ego early on and end up injuring yourself and getting yourself out of the game before you have a chance to really experience the benefits of lifting. My computer is telling me it's about time to go, and I got some afternoon plans I've got to get to. So I'm going to take about one more question, and I'm just going to scroll randomly and like, boom. Nico says, what's the best way to get lean without losing muscle? Don't go too deep on your calorie deficit. So stick to about 20% below your calorie maintenance needs in a deficit. So just about 20% below, and make sure your protein is ample. So about 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. And make sure you're getting enough fat. Don't go below 20% of your calories, because you want to make sure your hormones remain healthy. And the rest can come from carbohydrates. And make sure you lift weights. And don't fall for the old, use high reps to lose fat, use low reps to build muscle. That's bullshit. Lift exactly as you were lifting before you went onto your calorie deficit. That's my advice for that. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for all tuning in. I hope you all have a great rest of your weekend, what's left of it. Be sure to check out the description below. If you want to support me on Patreon, you can get involved in those private Q&As. You can even take part voice-wise with the Q&As. My Patreon is linked down in the description. My ebooks are linked down in the description. My Amazon affiliate stuff is linked down in the description. So any way you want to show your support, I really appreciate that. I'll see you guys, for those who are my Patreons, next Sunday for a private Q&A. And I'll see you guys on the 1st for the next public Q&A. Take care and be safe and stay healthy. Fit, formidable, and fantastic.